Hi, I'm here today to talk to you about being a Waldorf teacher. Now, I'm not an actual Waldorf teacher, but I'm going to try and give you some information on it to help you understand what it's like to be a Waldorf teacher. Maybe this is an option you'd like to explore. Being a Waldorf teacher is a calling, it's a passion, a way of life. The teachers feel at Waldorf that they have a freedom to deliver the curriculum. And at the center of this curriculum is the child. The teacher acts as an authority or a role model for the student to emulate. This means that the teacher kind of has to do their own inner work and be fairly grounded in themselves to recognize and pass on the wisdom behind the Waldorf pedagogy. Essentially, the teacher has to stand as a model for what it means to be a free human being. The curriculum helps at developing the freedom within the child. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The curriculum aims at helping the students to learn in a free manner. Really, it's not what the teacher wants the child to think, or the curriculum that tries to dictate what the child should think, but what the students feel is important that they want to learn. Now, Waldorf teachers go through some pretty extensive training. All Waldorf teachers go through either a 1-year full-time training or a 2-year part-time training. And this training kind of helps the teachers integrate the philosophical and practical foundations of the child development and education from birth to adulthood. They learn to explore subject matters artistically to help awaken their imaginative faculties. At Waldorf schools, Steiner believes in exploring humanities and science from an anthroposocial perspective. I'm going to give you a quote on what this means. Steiner expanded an exacting scientific method by which one could research for himself or herself into the spiritual worlds. The investigation, known also as spiritual science, is an obvious complement to the natural sciences we have come to accept. Through the study and practice observation, one awakens to his or her own inner nature and the spiritual realities of outer nature and the cosmos. The awareness of those relationships bring a greater reverence for all life. Now, this can be found at www.waldorfanswers.org. Now, the teachers don't necessarily explicitly teach this anthroposocial perspective, but it does help organize and underline the design of the schools and can even help influence the health and diet of teachers and students. Now, if you do this training, you're going to have to shell out about $8,400, and you're going to have to buy your own textbooks and your own recorder. What do they make, though, financially? Well, I looked online to see if I could find out any of the pay scales for a Waldorf teacher, and the answer seemed to vary depending on which chat room you looked in. Roughly, it looked between $20,000 and $30,000, or though there was one chat room that was saying as high as $35,000 with every year being a $500 raise. Not that you're in it for the money, though. So depending on also where you work and which school you're going for, you may or may not have benefit package included in that. If you are interested in Waldorf training and you think that maybe this is something that you'd like to kind of pursue a little bit further, you can look at the Ontario site or the Waldorf training site, the Waldorf information site, www.rsct.ca for more details. And there is a school in Thornhill, Ontario. Now, what's it like for a teacher in a Waldorf school in the classroom? Well, the Waldorf teachers generally follow their students through each grade. That means that a teacher starting off in grade 1 is going to relinquish that class closer to grade 8. Now, sometimes the period of time is shorter, but for the most part they try to get this prolonged exposure to one person. This looping process of the teacher following the students is thought to help really build a family-tight unit within the school. There's rarely conflicts between the teachers and the students. And that'd be something I'd be concerned about, is like, what if I don't like the teacher? Or what if as a teacher, I don't like the student? Well, Waldorf kind of feels that the training and the type of individual that the training attracts, or the type of teacher that Waldorf schools attract, are usually pretty good at overcoming these sort of things. As well as the training really kind of focuses on what child's needs are and how they develop, so that there's not really a huge conflict in between there. However, if there is a serious problem, The rest of the staff can get involved, as well as parents. And they're going to help decide and implement what action would be best for the child, as well as also for the classroom. And what kind of things are taught in a Waldorf classroom? Well, there's a variety of subject matter. In the early grades, say grade 1 to 3, there's a lot of introduction to the alphabet. There's some writing, reading, spelling, poetry, drama, that sort of thing. There's a lot of imaginative fairy tales and legends and even Old Testament stories. Numeracy and basic mathematical processes of addition, subtraction, division, multiplication are in there, as well as nature stories. There's a little bit of house building and gardening thrown in. In the middle grades, about 4 to 6, we're looking at same reading, writing, spelling, grammar, poetry, drama, English arts. But they also start getting into histories of ancient civilizations and myths. They start to look at different, more advanced mathematical processes, fractions, percentages, geometry. And then they kind of branch out from their gardening more so into local and world geography. They look at zoology, botany, and elementary physics. By 7 and 8, they're really kind of looking at creative writing, reading, spelling, grammar, poetry, and drama, the same kind of standards. They're looking at more historical, medieval history, Renaissance, world exploration, and they're getting into geography, physics, basic chemistry, astronomy, geology, physiology, that sort of thing. Now, what's kind of cool is alongside of this, they have handwork, knitting, crocheting, sewing, cross-stitching, the basic weaving, these sort of things. They have music that's involved, singing, pentatonic flute, the recorder, string instruments, brass percussions, these sort of things. Foreign languages are also a major component as well. Spanish, French, Japanese. It depends on the school, or where it's located, but these sort of language arts comes in. They also have art is a large part, and the beauty of design is something that's really tried to be fostered in Waldorf school. And this is wet-on-wet watercolor painting, drawing, clay modeling, perspective drawing, these sort of things. And an interesting thing called eurythmy, movements, gymnastics, and group games. Now, this eurythmy is taught by a specialist teacher, and this helps harmonize and strengthen the energies and the physical body of the students. Now, all of these curriculum activities are underlined with the idea of teaching to the whole human being through goodness, beauty, and truth. These are really emphasized in the curriculum. Now, the teacher doesn't give grades, which is kind of cool. Actually, they don't start really kind of giving grades until after grade 8. Instead, the teacher will write a pretty detailed description for the child or about the child that's given at the end of the year. Also, up until about grade 5, the students don't use textbooks. They're encouraged to design their own learning book, something that keeps track and record of what they've learned in their own experiences. In the early years, there's a strong emphasis on the oral approach to learning. There's lots of storytelling, lots of imagination, lots of interaction using language. This oral communication is seen as the basis for the development of all communication. So it can seem that some teaching is actually considered a lot slower and progress is slower than, say, in your public schools. Reading is one of those specific things, and there might be a complaint against Waldorf schools saying, well, they're not teaching my child how to read. Waldorf believes, or the Waldorf school believe, that the children learn about the alphabet naturally through art. They start to look at the history and the evolution of the sounds and the letters in the alphabet and find that these students naturally and somewhat effortlessly gravitate towards mastering the language, and reading just kind of falls along with that. So if you're moving a student from Waldorf after grade 8, they usually have already mastered the reading skills necessary, so they can transition into like a high school without much difficulty. However, you take a grade 2 Waldorf student, put them into a public school system in grade 3, you're going to find some serious conflicts with their ability to read. At Waldorf, there's also a strong focus on festivals and ceremonies. Now, underlying the curriculum, although again it's not explicitly taught, are Christian principles, and so these sort of holidays, Christian holidays and that, are celebrated. Waldorf believes that the Waldorf school system, sorry I keep saying Waldorf, but the Waldorf school system really believes that festivals and ceremonies help connect the students with the rhythm of the cosmos. There's a joy, an anticipation, the preparation, the participation, of course, the memories that go along with festivities and ceremonies. And the teachers, these festivals kind of help to awaken within the students kind of a spiritual reverence for all of life, the wonder and beauty of life. You might also notice that if you go to a Waldorf school that there'll be a distinct lack of electronic media. Not really any TVs, not so much using the computers or iPads or digital devices like this. And that's because they believe that these sort of electronic implements kind of hinder the development of the child, whether that's through the actual media, like the content of the media itself on television. I'm not exactly sure, but there are some references that you can go more in depth in that if you want to. And what of students with special needs, like those slow learners or those gifted learners? Well, Waldorf kind of tends to avoid classifying the kids like that. Certainly children who are strong in one area and weak in another area, the teacher tries to do their best to kind of balance these out. And some of the ways in which they resolve these issues are seeing if they can arrange for extra tutoring if the child needs an uplifting, or differentiating instruction to try and challenge those students who are finding the material maybe too easy. There's also a process of where they might use peer assistance. So if one student's really good at something and one student's not so good at something, put them together, and supposedly the student who's not so good at something is going to do better. What's it like working actually as a Waldorf teacher? I thought this was pretty cool. There's long hours. Most of what I found on the internet was saying, yeah, it's a challenge. There's a constant curriculum adaptation, and you can imagine that if you're teaching only grade 1, well, after a few years, you got that curriculum down pat, and you can just kind of modify, but essentially the main material of your grade 1 class isn't going to change. So, but if you're going all the way through up into grade 8, there's a whole wealth of information, and you might be crossing over into territories that you might not really be very good at. So the teachers have to explore the curriculum with the students, so kind of following them through. So that means there's a lot of research and preparation for the classes. It also means that Waldorf teachers really have to be lifelong learners themselves and model that role of self-transformation. Like, if I'm not really a gardener, and I'm not, I'm really going to have to focus on trying to learn about gardening and show that curiosity and do my best. And I may, as I evolve, I may find, wow, not only am I good at gardening, but I really, really like it. Or maybe I won't. But nonetheless, that's going to show to the students that, hey, here's something that maybe I don't really know that much about, but here's the process in which I can actually go and learn about it. Now, it's a challenge because the teachers really kind of have to overcome their own inadequacies and grow with the students. But they're not alone in this, and that's something neat about the Waldorf community, is that the other teachers are there to help. The teachers really kind of come together and have a strong input into the curriculum, and well, not so much the curriculum as what's going to be taught, but how it's going to be delivered. So there is voice that the teachers have there, and they're all there to kind of mutually support each other. They hold each other to some pretty high standards. They are that intricate part of that education process. So in a way, if you need some help, yeah, other teachers are going to come in and step in. Really, what I found is that if you're interested in becoming a Waldorf teacher, or it's something that you're like, wow, this kind of spiritual element, the whole child, holistic learning, child-centered, kind of driven form of education, is really a career path for the individual who wants to continuously learn and grow and develop as human beings. So that gives you some insight into Waldorf, being a Waldorf teacher. Take a look at some of the links that are going to be posted on the reference page accompanying this video, and yeah, hope you learned something.